6:42 a.m. I mean, it doesn't usually mean much to anyone, right?
Right.
Unless you're catching an early flight or, you forgot to set the coffee timer.
It's that gray area of the morning.
Exactly. Not quite night, not quite day. But the transcript we're looking at today, 6:42 a.m. isn't just a time on a clock. It is, well, it's the single most important data point in a massive federal case.
It really is. It's the timestamp that basically deconstructed a defense strategy that was, months, maybe even years in the making.
We're talking about the events of February 9th, 2026. And on the surface, if you just scrolled past the headlines, it looked like a total spectacle.
Flashing lights, federal agents.
Right, the marshals at Mar-a-Lago, the whole convoy. But the source material we have, and this includes the procedural timeline, the indictment filings, it tells a much tighter, colder story. It's like the split-screen operation.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it, a split screen. Because at the exact moment those federal agents were securing the perimeter in Palm Beach, Melania Trump was walking into a federal building just a few miles down the road.
And that wasn't an accident. That synchronization, it wasn't for the cameras.
No, not at all. It was legally necessary.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're not here to argue the politics or, do the whole pundit screaming match. There are plenty of other places for that.
Yeah.
Our mission is to look at the procedure. We want to understand the mechanics of how the government coordinated a raid and a grand jury testimony, literally down to the minute, and why the evidence that came out in that window changed everything.
We're looking at the machinery of justice here. And in a federal conspiracy case, there are no coincidences. The timing is the strategy.
So let's get right into it. Walk us through this tick-tock. The source material breaks this morning down in, incredible detail. It starts before the sun is even really up.
Right. So to get the raid, you have to start a little earlier, 6 a.m. sharp. Melania Trump's legal team is already inside the federal courthouse in West Palm Beach.
They're meeting with prosecutors from the special counsel's office.
Yes. And this isn't a negotiation anymore. That's all done. They are there for one reason, to sign the proffer agreement.
Okay, so let's clarify that, because you hear these legal terms thrown around. A proffer agreement, that's not just a casual, I promise to tell the truth, is it? It's a binding contract.
It's extremely specific. Think of it as a queen for a day letter, but it's permanent.
Yeah.
She agrees to provide truthful testimony, full cooperation. She can't hold anything back, no matter how personal.
And in exchange,
the government agrees to a specific charge. She pleads guilty to a single count, and they give a binding recommendation for probation. No prison time.
So the ink is literally drying on this immunity deal, while most of Florida is still fast asleep.
Correct. And this is where the timeline gets so critical. As soon as those signatures are on the paper, the prosecutors give the signal to the U.S. Marshals.
That's the green light.
That's the green light. 42 minutes later, 6:42 a.m., the Marshals execute the warrant at Mar-a-Lago.
Wow. And then just 5 minutes after that, 6:47 a.m., Donald Trump is in custody. The source makes a point of saying how clean this was. No standoff, no chaos.
It had to be. By 7:15 a.m., he's in a federal vehicle on his way to the Miami holding facility. And this is the part that really matters, the procedural nuance.
He's cut off.
He's completely cut off. His phone is taken. He can't reach his legal team during the transit. And crucially, he cannot reach his wife.
This is the part I circled in my notes. I called it the hermetic seal.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it so vital to have him in a car in a dead zone at the exact moment she was walking into that grand jury room at 8 a.m.?
It's standard operating procedure for dismantling a conspiracy, but you rarely see it play out like this with a married couple at this level.
Yeah.
In these white-collar cases, the biggest threat to a prosecution is witness tampering, spousal pressure.
You're saying he could have made a call, just a single call, and derailed the whole thing?
Absolutely. If he'd known she was about to testify, if he had 5 minutes to send a message or get a lawyer to intervene, the whole dynamic changes. Or even just the psychological weight of her knowing that he knows.
Yeah.
By arresting him at 6:42 and putting her in that room at 8:09, the government created a vacuum. He couldn't reach her. She was legally bound to talk, and she was physically isolated from his influence.
So the overlap wasn't for the cameras, it was to protect the testimony itself.
Exactly, to protect the integrity of the grand jury proceeding.
That's just a fascinating look at the logistics. It's like turning the timeline into a weapon, ensuring the truth has, I guess, a safe passage to get on the record. And speaking of getting facts straight, if you're finding this breakdown valuable, if you want to get past the noise, don't forget to comment below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. We're going to keep following the facts wherever they lead.
And following the facts here leads us right to the insider.
Right. Let's pivot to Melania. The narrative shift in the source material it's huge. It talks about a move from altruism to survival. For years, the public story was all about loyalty.
Standing by your man.
Yeah. But the legal reality was much, much darker, wasn't it?
It's a rational actor model. You
Yeah.
have to strip away the First Lady title and just look at her as a potential defendant. The source notes she was facing conspiracy charges. And under federal law, there's something called Pinkerton liability.
Pinkerton liability, that sounds like something from an old detective novel. Break that down.
It does sound old school, but it's very much alive. Essentially, it means a co-conspirator is liable for all the foreseeable crimes committed by other members of the conspiracy,
Even if you just played a small part.
even if your role was minor. If you signed a tax return knowing it was false, or you sat in one meeting where fraud was planned, you're on the hook for the whole thing, the whole boat.
And the exposure is what?
We're talking 20 to 30 years in federal prison.
So the choice wasn't, do I love my husband? It was, do I want to risk dying in a federal prison cell?
That's the cold calculus, exactly.
Yeah.
The prosecutors didn't need to prove she was the mastermind. They just needed to prove she was a participant. And once they had that, her lawyers would have told her, loyalty doesn't keep you out of a jumpsuit.
It makes sense. I mean, if you're looking at a 30-year sentence versus probation, there's not much of a choice there. But you don't get that kind of deal unless you bring something valuable to the table.
You have to bring the goods.
And the source says she provided 3 specific pieces of evidence. The smoking guns. And reading through these, the clarity is, it's startling. This isn't vague inference.
No, this is what prosecutors dream of. It's intent evidence.
Yeah.
Proving financial fraud is hard because you have to prove what was in someone's head. You have to prove they knew the numbers were wrong, not that they were just, bad at math.
Or overly optimistic.
Right. These 3 items, they bridge that gap perfectly.
Okay, let's start with evidence number 1. The audio from March 2020. It's a recording of a call with a Deutsche Bank loan officer. Set the scene for us.
Context is everything here. About 6 months before this call, an independent licensed appraiser valued Mar-a-Lago at around $75 million.
$75 million, that's the baseline, the market reality.
That's the baseline. On this recording, Trump is on the phone, and he just dismisses that number.
Yeah.
He tells the banker the appraisers don't know the property, and then, this is the direct quote, they will get our guy to do another one at the right number.
Get our guy to do another one at the right number. And the source says that right number ended up being $739 million.
Right, from $75 million to $739 million.
And that is not a margin of error. That's not a market fluctuation. That's a different planet.
And that's the fraud. But the legal problem isn't just the final number. It's the phrase, get our guy.
It implies he's fixing the process.
Exactly. It's an admission that the valuation isn't based on the market. It's based on a target he needs to get the loan. For a jury, hearing the defendant himself say, we will fix the number, that's devastating. It just removes all the ambiguity.
It kills the I relied on the expert's defense because he's on tape directing the expert.
Precisely. He's not the passive recipient of bad advice. He's the architect of the valuation.
Which brings us to evidence number 2, the text message from 2018. This is an exchange between Melania and Trump directly. It's about property values.
This is the 2 sets of books theory in black and white. He's telling her what to tell the accountant. And the instruction is simple. Bank appraisals should be high and tax appraisals should be low.
Which, for anyone listening, is the literal textbook definition of fraud. You can't tell the bank your house is a palace to get a loan and then tell the IRS it's a shack to lower your taxes.
You have to pick one reality. But here's where the legal hammer really drops. In the text, Melania asks him if this is legal. She types out the question.
And his reply.
His reply is, everyone does it, followed by, just don't put it in writing.
Just don't put it in writing, while putting it in a text message.
The irony is thick. But legally, it's fatal. That phrase proves what's called consciousness of guilt. In a courtroom, if you can show the defendant knew what he was doing was wrong and tried to hide it, you've basically won the battle.
You can't argue, I thought this was standard business practice, when you're also saying, don't create a paper trail.
It just offends a jury's basic sense of fair play. The system relies on people being honest. And when you have evidence of someone at the top gaming it so blatantly, you lose all benefit of the doubt.
And then there's the third piece, which sort of seals the deal. The handwritten notes from 2019. These are Melania's notes.
Yeah, what are called contemporaneous notes. She wrote them during a meeting with the accountants. And she quotes Trump instructing the whole team. Banks get the good numbers, IRS gets the bad numbers.
Why are contemporaneous notes so powerful in court? Why isn't that just hearsay?
Well, it often falls under a hearsay exception. But its real power is just credibility. These are notes taken at the time, before any investigation, before there was any motive to lie. Juries see that as highly reliable.
So it corroborates the audio and the text?
It creates a triangulation of evidence. It's almost impossible to argue that any single piece was just taken out of context.
So we have the timeline, the arrest, the evidence, and that combination triggers an immediate legal escalation. The source mentions a superseding indictment. They went from 34 counts to 46 counts overnight.
Immediately.
Right.
Right after Melania's testimony. A superseding indictment just replaces the original one. The prosecutors went back to the grand jury and essentially said, we have new evidence and, more importantly, a new witness. The crime is bigger than we thought.
What are these 12 new counts?
The heavy hitters are the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Now, conspiracy is a specific thing legally. You need an agreement between 2 or more people.
And before Melania, they didn't have the second person confirmed.
They had a hard time proving the actual agreement. They could show the fraud, but proving 2 people sat down and agreed to do it is tougher. Melania's testimony provides that second mind. She admits she was part of it. That locks in the conspiracy charges.
Then you've got 4 counts of wire fraud and 2 making false statements.
Wire fraud is the modern catch-all. If you send a fraudulent document by email or upload a fake loan application, if it crosses state lines electronically, that's wire fraud. 20-year maximum per count.
20 years per count.
And making false statements to a financial institution can carry up to 30. So the math here gets terrifying very quickly. This is exposure measured in decades.
And what about that old defense, the blame the accountant defense? I just signed what they put in front of me.
That strategy is completely dead on arrival now. You cannot claim you relied on professionals when there's a recording of you telling them to fake the numbers. You can't blame the accountant when your wife testifies you ordered them to cook the books.
It's a terrifying position for a defendant. The walls aren't just closing in, they're already touching. And if you want to make sure you don't miss our breakdown of the trial itself, take a second right now to subscribe. We dig into the details that other shows just skim over.
Because the next few months are absolutely going to be a pressure cooker.
So the walls are closing in. Let's look at what happens next. The source says the arraignment is for 1 p.m. at the Miami Federal Courthouse. What's the scene in that room?
It's going to be a battle over liberty. The plea will be not guilty, that's standard. But the real fight is over bail. Conditions of release. The judge has to consider flight risk.
And prosecutors are going to argue he's a massive flight risk. I mean, they have to, right?
Of course. He has private planes, overseas assets, and he's facing a sentence that, given his age, is basically a life sentence. That's the classic profile of someone who might decide to run.
But the defense will argue he's the most recognizable person on the planet. He can't just blend in.
That'll be their argument, sure. But the dynamic has changed with 46 counts and a cooperating witness. The evidence looks overwhelming. Prosecutors will push for detention, or at the very least, very strict monitoring. GPS ankle monitor, surrender passports, that kind of thing.
And this whole thing resets the trial clock, doesn't it? The speedy trial clock.
It does. With the superseding indictment, the defense needs time to review the new charges. So we're probably looking at a trial date pushing into late spring, maybe early summer, 6 to 8 months out.
That still feels fast for a case this big.
In the federal system, that's lightning speed. But the source makes a really interesting prediction about the next 60 to 90 days.
Which is?
Intense plea negotiations.
A plea deal for a former president.
Yeah.
That seems hard to even imagine.
It sounds impossible, but just look at the leverage the prosecutors have.
Oh.
They have the audio, they have the texts, they have the wife. It's a winning hand. They might go to the defense with a take-it-or-leave-it offer.
Like what?
Something like, plead to 5 counts, take a specific sentence, maybe home confinement, or go to trial on all 46 and risk dying in prison.
The prisoner's dilemma, but the other prisoner has already flipped.
Exactly. And for a rational defendant, you take the deal. You cut your losses. But we aren't always dealing with rational actors in these cases. Ego plays a huge part.
That's the ultimate gamble.
It really is. But the government doesn't usually bring a superseding indictment unless they are prepared to go all the way to trial and win.
It just highlights the sheer efficiency of the system when it wants to move. We started this whole thing talking about 6:42 a.m., and in the span of one morning, the machinery of justice just worked. Evidence led to cooperation, which led to new charges, which led to an arrest.
It wasn't magic. It was procedure. And it's a reminder that the system creates pressure points that no one really is immune to. The arrest was the big spectacle, the flashy part. But the real fatal blow happened in the quiet of that grand jury room.
It always comes back to that inner circle. In white-collar crime, the spouse knows where the real numbers are. And when the pressure gets high enough, that loyalty gets tested against the reality of a prison cell.
And in this case, survival won.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with today. The defendant is standing before a judge this afternoon. The cameras are flashing. But if you strip all that away, the question isn't just about guilt or innocence anymore. It's about the cost of hubris.
It is.
Does he fight all 46 counts, risking a sentence that means he never walks free again? Or does the weight of his own recorded words, his own voice saying, "Get our guy to fix the numbers," force him to take a knee? The system has placed a bet that he'll break. We'll have to see if they're right.
It's going to be a very tense few months.
We'll be tracking the filings as they're dropped. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on the procedural side of this story, where we focus on the facts and not the noise, make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a comment with your take, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.